My name is Crystal Howard. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been the kind of woman people describe as stable. The one with the good job, the color-coded budget, the automatic savings transfers, the calm voice that smooths over other people's chaos. Liam used to say that's what he loved about me, my calm, my predictability. Later, I realized he meant it like a diagnosis. That evening started like hundreds before it. I was finishing a quarterly report for one of my firm's clients, cross-checking numbers, every column precise. The apartment around me glowed with warm, expensive light, the kind of comfort you can only buy when you're the one paying every bill. The rent, the utilities, the sleek furniture, all mine. Liam always said he'd contribute when his startup takes off. That line became a kind of lullaby I stopped hearing after the third year. I shut my laptop and stretched. The kitchen counter was crowded with grocery bags, wildflower honey, oat milk, imported cheese. All his favorites. It struck me then I couldn't remember the last time I'd bought something just because I wanted it. When I turned towards the dining area, I saw it. A black leather jacket casually draped over the back of the white velvet chair I'd saved 3 months to buy. It wasn't mine. The smell reached me first. Heavy perfume, the kind meant to announce its owner before she enters the room. It was sharp, sweet, predatory. My first thought wasn't jealousy. It was calculation. The chair had been empty when I left for work that morning. Liam had stayed home to work on investor calls. The jacket hadn't magically appeared. The front door clicked open. Liam walked in. Phone in hand, a paper bag from some trendy cafe hanging from his wrist. His hair was tousled, too perfectly. Tousled. And he looked up only long enough to flash that effortless grin that used to make me forgive everything. "Hey, babe, did you pay the water bill?" They sent some reminder about updating the card info. My hand tightened around the edge of the counter. Yes, it's done. He kissed the air near my cheek, already scrolling through his messages. Good. Oh, and can you make sure the joint account has enough for my photography class fee tomorrow? They don't take late payments. The words barely registered. My focus stayed on the jacket. Whose is that, I asked. He glanced up, following my gaze. His eyes flicked from the jacket to me, then back to his phone. Oh, that. It's Ava's. He said it like he was naming a neighbor's cat. Ava, his creative partner. The one who posted gym selfies tagged #Hustle Queen and commented under all his photos with fire emojis. She left it here after our brainstorming session, he added casually, pouring himself sparkling water like we were discussing weather. Brainstorming, I repeated. My voice was neutral. Last night. He nodded. Yeah, we worked late. You were at that corporate dinner, remember? I did remember sitting under crystal chandeliers while my phone buzzed with his texts about how soulless the corporate world was. I'd smiled through it like always. Now the room felt airless. I lifted the jacket, the leather cool and supple under my fingers. She stayed here. He leaned against this counter, crossing his arms, the posture of someone rehearsed in defensiveness. You're overreacting. She crashed on the couch, that's all. You know how artists are. We get into a flow. On our couch. He rolled his eyes. Crystal, you're making this weird. You and I, we have different needs. That sentence hung in the air like static. Different needs, I echoed. He exhaled as if explaining something simple to a stubborn child. You're incredible, okay? You're the rock. You keep everything running. But you don't exactly light fires. You don't make me feel alive anymore. I stared at him, the jacket still in my hand. So Ava makes you feel alive. He smiled, faintly relieved I'd said it for him. Exactly. She's passion. Your stability. Both are important. Important. He pushed off the counter and started pacing. Look, you're the beta. You keep the bills paid, the structure solid. That's your energy. But an alpha like Ava, she brings the chaos, the spark. It's a balance. I almost laughed. Did you just call me the beta? He grinned, as if proud of the metaphor. Don't take it the wrong way. It's just biology, Crystal. You're the foundation. She's the flame. Together it all works. It took me a second to realize he believed every word. He'd found some cheap online ideology to justify cheating a self-help vocabulary of alphas and betas, passion, and stability. And he thought saying it like a business model made it rational. I set the jacket down carefully, smoothing the leather flat. So let me get this straight, I said softly. I pay for the roof over your head, the food you eat, the phone you're holding, and you're telling me my role is to provide stability while you pursue passion with someone else. He nodded, relieved that I'd articulated it so neatly. Exactly. You get it. You're so logical, that's what I love about you. This isn't personal, it's about energy. There was a strange stillness inside me then, not anger, not heartbreak, something colder. I walked to the window. The city glittered below each light, steady, dependable. Just like me. When I turned back, my voice was even. You want to live in a world of dynamics? Fine. He blinked, unsure if it was agreement or threat. I took my keys from the counter. Let's test your theory. Let's see how your ecosystem survives without its foundation. Crystal. But I was already walking to the door. As it shut behind me, the sound was small, soft, definitive. The sound of a lock clicking into place, sealing something in. Inside that expensive, beautiful apartment, there was a jacket on a chair, a man holding a glass of sparkling water, and the first faint tremor of collapse. And I was already planning the shutdown. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even tell my friends. When people talk about heartbreak, they describe noise, shouting, sobbing, pleading. But what I felt that night was silence. Cold, measured silence. The kind that lives in data centers and operating rooms. I sat at my desk in the half-dark, the city lights spilling through the blinds like fractured code. My laptop hummed a familiar mechanical lullaby. On the screen glowed the spreadsheet that had once been our shared budget. Now it looked like a crime scene. Rent, utilities, streaming, subscriptions. Liam's online course fees. Every transaction had my name beside it. Every responsibility, every auto pay, every card link. I was the foundation, he'd said. He wasn't wrong. But he'd never stopped to think what would happen if the foundation walked away. So I began. Step 1. Financial extraction. I opened the joint account and transferred half of the balance, exactly half, to my personal savings. Not revenge, just fairness. Then one by one, I disconnected every automatic draft connected to my name. The electricity, the Wi-Fi, the concierge service. Each confirmation email felt like a small exhale of freedom. Step 2. Digital erasure. I changed the passwords to my cloud accounts, canceled the shared Netflix, revoked his access to my Amazon Prime. The kind of invisible housekeeping that keeps a relationship alive gone in less than 15 minutes. Step 3. Disengagement. I logged into the property management portal and canceled the renewal for the lease I'd signed alone. My cursor hovered over the confirm termination button. I clicked it. Confirmation successful. It was almost elegant watching the world I built unravel in reverse order, one clean, logical sequence. I didn't pack right away. Instead, I sat back in my chair, the glow of the laptop washing over my hands. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from clarity. For years, I'd been afraid that without me, Liam would collapse. But maybe collapse was what he needed. When the screen dimmed, I finally stood and crossed to the bedroom. It looked like a magazine spread, curated chaos. Designer pillows, abstract art, the faint scent of his cologne. I opened the closet. Half of it was filled with clothes I never wore, things he'd picked for me to match his aesthetic. Dresses with high slits, heels that hurt after 20 minutes. I touched the fabric, then let it go. None of it was mine, not really. I pulled out a single suitcase. Inside, I placed what mattered. My laptop, my passport and IDs. A worn leather notebook filled with years of budget scribbles. A small velvet box containing my grandmother's locket. A steady woman who survived 2 bankruptcies and 1 cheating husband without ever raising her voice. And finally, a hardbound copy of The Odyssey, my favorite story about a woman's quiet endurance while the men played at gods. That was all. I zipped the suitcase shut. The sound felt final, like a line of code completing its loop. The clock on the wall read 2:13 a.m. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the fridge and the faint vibration of Liam's phone on the counter, another message from Ava, no doubt. A notification flashed on his screen. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I smiled not bitterly, just knowingly. Tomorrow would be instructive. Before I left, I did one last thing. I sat at the kitchen counter, opened my email, and scheduled every service termination to take effect at 8 a.m., exactly 5 hours from now. Electricity. Internet, gas, all in my name, all set to end. Then I stood in the doorway and looked around one last time. The apartment had been our dream-exposed brick-high ceilings, plants, that somehow stayed alive under my care. But now it felt like a simulation, a set built to mimic domestic bliss. You called me the beta, I whispered to the empty room, but I was the architect. I switched off the light. When the door closed behind me, the click echoed through the hallway. Soft. Certain. The elevator ride down was silent. My suitcase wheels rolled over the marble floor, each sound crisp and controlled. When the doors opened to the parking garage, the smell of cold concrete and engine oil hit me sharp grounding. I placed the suitcase in the trunk and slid into the driver's seat. For a moment, I just sat there, my hands on the steering wheel, breathing in the stillness. Then I started the engine. The headlights carved a path through the darkness. As I drove out of the garage, I glanced once at the building's reflection in my rearview mirror, tall, perfect, fragile. It would still be standing in the morning, but by nightfall, its lights would go out. And maybe then Liam would finally learn what happens when the foundation stops holding everything up. The first thing I noticed about freedom was the quiet. Not the hollow quiet of loneliness, the kind of quiet that hums with possibility. My new apartment was small, a single-room studio, near the river, the kind of place realtors call efficient. The furniture came with it, a bed, a table, a chair. That was enough. Every morning, I woke to sunlight instead of tension. I ran along the water before work, made coffee in silence, and logged into my laptop without anyone asking for money or attention. It was monastic, cleansing. Each breath felt like a system reboot. Still, I kept one connection to the old world, a burner phone. It sat on the nightstand, turned face down, a small, glowing relic of everything I'd left behind. I didn't want to call Liam, I just wanted to observe. Data collection, not emotion. It didn't take long. Day 3. The phone lit up with a new voicemail notification. I let it sit for hours before pressing play. Crystal, hey! The Wi-Fi's down. I think you forgot to pay the bill again. Can you fix it? I have an online coaching session tomorrow. His tone was casual, expectant, the voice of a man who believed gravity would always pull the same direction. I deleted it without a word. Day 5. Another notification. Another voicemail. This time, his tone had shifted. Crystal, what's going on? The power company says the account is closed. I came home and everything's blinking. I had to throw out all the food in the fridge. I have people coming over tomorrow. This isn't funny. People, meaning Ava. I imagined them fumbling in the dark phones, glowing like desperate fireflies. Delete. Day 7. The message came at 2 a.m. His voice was shaking. Crystal, I got a notice from the landlord. They said the rent wasn't paid and the lease isn't renewed. What did you do? You can't just abandon your responsibilities. This isn't how adults handle things. Call me back. Fix this. I sat on the edge of the bed, the moonlight slicing across the room. Fix this. For years, that was all I'd done. Fix, smooth, stabilize. Now he said the words like a prayer, and for the first time I realized how powerful they sounded when unanswered. I turned the phone over. The screen went black again. Silence reclaimed the room. The next morning, I met my reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized her. Not because she'd changed, but because she finally looked unburdened. Later that week, while I was working on a new client proposal, my regular phone rang. The name on the screen stopped me mid-sentence. Maya, a mutual friend of ours. The kind of friend who had always taken Liam's charisma at face value. I hesitated, then answered. Hey, Crystal. Her voice was cautious, hesitant. Have you talked to Liam recently? My lips twitched. No. Why? There was a pause on the line, the sound of someone deciding how much truth to tell. It's a mess, she said finally. He's been kicked out of the apartment. The landlord changed the locks yesterday. Apparently the rent hadn't been paid for weeks. He's been crashing at Ava's, but... But what? Maya lowered her voice. Apparently Ava's in trouble. Big trouble. There was some fight, police got involved. She's been arrested for assault. Something about her business partner pressing charges. I blinked, letting that sink in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was symmetry. Maya kept talking, her words spilling fast. He's been calling everyone saying you ruined his life. But honestly, Crystal, I think he did that on his own. He's broke. Ava's gone. He looks lost. I stared at the muted city skyline outside my window. The bridge lights steady, unwavering. I didn't ruin his life, I said quietly. I just stopped funding it. There was silence on the line then. A small, disbelieving laugh. You always were the calm one, huh? I guess calm finally paid off, I murmured. After we hung up, I sat for a long time watching the reflection of the river lights flicker on my window pane. Every decision I'd made had been cold, methodical, but somewhere under the precision I could feel something warmer beginning to flicker back to life. Not revenge, not joy, just peace. The burner phone buzzed one last time that night. One message, no voicemail, just a single text. You win. I hope you're happy. I read it once, then deleted it. I didn't win. There was never a game. He'd built a world on borrowed stability, and when the foundation withdrew, the structure collapsed exactly as physics said it would. I poured myself a glass of water, closed my laptop, and stepped out onto the small balcony. The night air was cool and clean. The hum of the city felt distant, harmless. Somewhere across town, the lights in that old apartment were gone for good. But here in this quiet little studio, everything worked perfectly. It had been almost 2 weeks since I left, and by then, even the smallest noise from my burner phone carried a strange satisfaction. Every notification meant the system I once held together was still breaking cleanly, predictably, exactly as designed. That afternoon, I was at my tiny table reviewing a report for a new client. The air conditioner hummed faintly in the background, the rhythm of order. Then the phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. I pressed play. Crystal, you don't get it. You've destroyed everything. I can't get into the bank account. The landlord's suing me and Ava. His voice cracked mid-word. Ava's been arrested. There were drugs in her car. She says they weren't hers, but they found her name on the lease for the warehouse. I don't know what to do. I need your help. He sounded small, frightened, a man who had built his world on borrowed scaffolding and just realized it was collapsing. For a moment, I simply listened. The pauses between his words were longer, now heavy with disbelief. He had lived his life assuming someone would always stabilize it for him. Now he was learning what happens when gravity stops being kind. I replayed the message once, not for pleasure, but to study the tone. It wasn't anger anymore, it was confusion. The kind that comes when the world stops making sense to someone who's never had to hold it up themselves. I deleted the voicemail and turned back to my laptop. My new client was a startup led by 3 women, all of them my age, all balancing chaos and survival with grace. They'd hired me to manage their finances, my kind of calm. As I sorted their numbers, I realized something I wasn't rebuilding from nothing. I was rebuilding from clarity. Later that night, Maya called again. Her voice came through softer this time, almost hesitant. Crystal, you might want to know what's happening. Liam's business went under. Investors pulled out. Something about unpaid taxes and missing receipts. His social media accounts are gone. And Ava, well, she's facing serious charges. Assault, possession, fraud. I leaned back in my chair. That's a full collection. Maya let out a low whistle. You're not even shocked, are you? No, I said. I just understand cause and effect. There was a pause. He's telling everyone you ruined him. He ruined himself. I just stopped sponsoring the illusion. Maya gave a small rueful laugh. You're terrifyingly calm, Crystal. I was always calm, I said. He just never noticed until it wasn't serving him. We hung up soon after, but her words lingered. Terrifyingly calm. Maybe she was right. Maybe calm is terrifying to the people who thrive on chaos. That night I took a walk along the river. The air was sharp, laced with the scent of rain and wet stone. Couples strolled by, laughing, their reflections fractured in the water. I thought about Liam, about Ava, about the wreckage of their self-made empire. I didn't hate them. Hate requires energy, and I'd already given them enough of mine. As I stood watching the city lights shimmer, I realized something almost mathematical. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd merely removed support. The system collapsed because it was unsustainable by design. The next day, I donated the burner phone to an electronics recycling bin. No ceremony, no goodbye. The experiment was over. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking to the phantom buzz of a message demanding attention, apology, or payment. When I woke, sunlight filled the room. The first thing I did was open the curtains wider. The second was make coffee strong black and mine. Later that week, I got an email from a former coworker. She'd heard from someone that Liam was staying at a friend's couch downtown, broke and humiliated. The universe had a sense of symmetry, it seemed. I read the message, closed it, and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, Howard Consulting, Independent Financial Recovery Services. The irony didn't escape me. I used to save one man from his own bad decisions. Now, I'd make a living teaching others how to save themselves. That evening, as the city faded into dusk, I lit a single candle on my table. Its glow flickered against the walls, soft and steady. I thought about the night Liam had said I didn't make him feel alive. Fire, he'd said. Passion, but fire doesn't build, it only burns. And now everything he touched had turned to ash. I smiled faintly, not from triumph, but from understanding. He called himself the Alpha, but I was the architect, and I'd simply stopped building. Cliffhanger. It had been a month of silence when my new phone rang one evening. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. The line crackled faint and distant. Then a voice raw and trembling. Crystal, it's me. For a moment, I didn't recognize the voice. It was hoarse, stripped of its usual swagger, like someone had drained all the color from it. Crystal, please don't hang up. I didn't. Part of me was curious not out of affection, but out of study. Like observing a creature you once fed, now forced to find its own way in the wild. What do you need, Liam? My tone was calm level. There was the sound of traffic behind him, a car horn, the shuffling of restless footsteps. I made mistakes. Okay. I see that now. Everything's gone. The apartment, the accounts, Ava. She's in jail. And His breath hitched. I'm sleeping in my car. Crystal, I don't have anyone else. I leaned back in my chair, watching sunlight pool across my desk. My new office was simple but alive. Papers, neatly stacked coffee, half-finished, an open window, letting in the hum of real life. I'm sorry to hear that, I said quietly. Please, he whispered. I just need some help getting back on my feet. Alone, maybe. You always said you believed in giving people second chances. That was before I learned what they do with them, I replied. He fell silent for several seconds, the kind of silence that grows teeth. Crystal, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was stupid. You were right. You were the stable one, the smart one. You made me feel safe. Ava she made me feel alive, but that doesn't matter now. You were everything. His voice cracked. I get it now. I get what I lost. I closed my eyes, listening to his words wash over me like static. Once they would have pierced me back when I mistook his need for love. Now they just sounded like data, predictable output from a failed system. You always talked about dynamics, I said, my voice low, deliberate. Alpha, beta, passion, stability. You had a theory, remember? He hesitated. Yeah, but I was wrong. No, I said, you were right. You just misunderstood the hierarchy. He swallowed audibly. What are you talking about? You thought the foundation was submissive because it stayed quiet, I said, standing and walking toward the window. You thought stability meant weakness. But here's the truth. Liam, the foundation decides when the structure stands and when it falls. Crystal, please. The beta, I continued, doesn't depend on the alpha. The beta builds the system. And when the system is corrupted, the beta shuts it down. He made a broken sound, halfway between a sob and a laugh. You sound like a robot, like you don't even care. I looked out at the city, the river glinting in the distance, calm and inevitable. Caring is what kept the system alive longer than it should have been. Crystal, he said softly, you're really going to leave me like this after everything we had? Had implies there was something mutual, I said. There wasn't. There was only me holding up a fantasy you built on borrowed ground. The line went quiet. Then his voice returned lower now, bitter. You're heartless. No, I said, I'm finished. There was a click, not harsh, not triumphant, just final. I ended the call. For a long time, I didn't move. The room was silent, except for the faint whistle of wind through the window. On the desk, the phone lay face down, dark, inert, done. I picked up a small canvas resting on the floor. It was a painting I'd bought from a street artist a few days ago, a storm clearing over a mountain range, a thin line of sunlight breaking through. I hung it above the desk, stepping back to look at it properly. The colors were muted, imperfect, not the glossy palette Liam used to insist on for our apartment. It was real, raw, honest. As I looked at it, I realized something I didn't hate him. Hate implies attachment, a line still connecting 2 points. What I felt now was clean disconnection. Somewhere out there, Liam was learning how to live without a safety net. And here, in this small, sunlit office, I was learning how to live without being one. I turned my phone back over. No new messages. I smiled faintly. System shutdown complete. 3 months later, my mornings began with sunlight and the smell of coffee. Not tension, not silence, heavy with someone else's moods. Just warmth. Real, breathable calm. My new apartment overlooked the park. The walls were white, the furniture minimal, the air alive with the hum of a world I built myself. There were no designer throw pillows, no performative clutter, no one rearranging things to match the aesthetic. Every object here had purpose. I'd registered my business 2 months ago, Howard Consulting. Clients came through referrals, word spreading quietly. I helped small startups, especially women-led ones, rebuild after financial manipulation, messy divorces, or business partners who'd drained them dry. Each story was different, but the pattern was always the same. Someone trusted too much, gave too long, carried too much weight until it broke them. I knew how to guide them out of that. I'd lived it. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the glass as I worked the same face, but sharper now. Not harder, just defined. I wasn't someone's safety net anymore. I was my own foundation. That afternoon, while reviewing invoices, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was a client inquiry. Crystal Howard speaking. There was a pause, not silence, but a low static like wind against a phone mic. Then a voice I hadn't heard since that call. Liam. Crystal, he said quietly. It's me. I didn't speak. He exhaled shakily. I'm not calling to ask for money or help. I just wanted to say I get it now. You were the only real thing in my life. Everything else, Ava, the business, it was smoke. Then I hope you've learned to breathe on your own, I said softly. He let out a hollow laugh. You don't forgive, do you? I don't rewrite corrupted code, I replied. Crystal. Goodbye, Liam. I ended the call before his sentence could finish. The sound was small, a clean click, the kind that closes a door completely, not angrily. For a few seconds I stood there, the phone still in my hand, staring out the window at the park below. A group of children were chasing each other through the grass, laughing free. The world kept moving forward without drama, without tragedy, just forward. I placed the phone face down on the table. It didn't buzz again. Later, as dusk settled, I brewed tea and sat by the window with my laptop. I opened a new document labeling it version 2.0. Not for Liam, for me. New goals, new boundaries, new code. The old version of me, the one who over-explained, over-gave, over-forgave, had been debugged out of existence. Outside, the city glowed like circuitry, each light steady, precise. I watched until the sky shifted from orange to indigo and whispered the final line of the story to myself. Not bitterly, not triumphantly, just true. He thought I was the beta, but the beta always controls the system, and I chose a clean shutdown. The screensaver dimmed, the tea cooled, and for the first time in years, everything ran exactly as it should.